Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another PS4 jailbreak tutorial. We have another new way to jailbreak the PS4 using the PlayStation Vue application. So no need for any Blu-ray discs anymore like the previous jailbreak. And also, we can now jailbreak one update higher on the PS4 up to firmware 13.0. So you can now jailbreak all the way up to firmware 13.0 using this method. And of course, this is going to be a full beginner's guide showing you how to set up this jailbreak from scratch. Now, of course, this video is going to be part of a playlist of tutorials showing you how to make the most out of your jailbroken PS4. So once you have the jailbreak set up, you can then check out those other videos to see some of the other useful things that you can do once you have the console jailbroken. But before we can get to that, we need to get the jailbreak set up in the first place. So, to get started, we're first of all going to head over to our notifications, go to our downloads, make sure you don't have any system software updates that are waiting to be installed or that are currently being downloaded. If you do, press the options button over them and select them to delete and get rid of that system software update so it does not get installed. Then we're going to head over to our settings and scroll down to our network settings and uncheck the box to connect to the internet for now. Then, if we scroll down to our system option and then go to automatic downloads and make sure all of these boxes are unchecked in automatic downloads. Then we can head to our system information to check our system software version, which is your firmware version. So you can see I'm currently on firmware 12.52. So this jailbreak supports firmwares from 7.00 right the way up to 13.00 and any firmware version in between. So 12.52 of course is compatible, as well as 13.0 being the highest firmware that is jailbreakable with this jailbreak. Now you can update your firmware to a specific version with a USB drive. You can update to 13.0 if you want, but it's not actually recommended to update using this jailbreak, because this jailbreak is actually more stable on lower firmwares than it is on higher firmwares. So generally, better to stay on whatever firmware you're currently on. If you really want to update to 13.0, the highest jailbreakable firmware, I'll leave a link in the video description to a video that shows you how you can update your firmware to a specific version. As long as you're on a firmware between 7.0 and 13.0, you will be able to run this jailbreak. So anyway, that's the main preamble out of the way. So let's go ahead and get into the actual setup here. So in order to set up this jailbreak on a console that has not had a jailbreak on it before, you are going to need to restore a backup file that contains the application for the jailbreak as well as the jailbreak itself all set up for you. So you restore a backup file that contains that information. The problem is, when you restore somebody else's backup file onto your console, it does reset your console. So you lose your installed save data, your installed applications, and any other information that you have on your console. So you're going to want to make your own backup of your own console first. So to do that, you want to plug in a USB drive into your computer, right-click on the drive and go to Properties and make sure that the file system is exFAT, EXFAT. If it's anything else, back up any data on the drive and then right-click on it and reformat it and select exFAT as the file system to format the drive in. And then go ahead and plug that USB drive or external hard drive into your PS4. And then on the PS4, we're going to head into our settings page and go down to our system settings again and then scroll down to backup and restore. Select that with X and select the option to back up the PS4 and just say yes. And then of course, select any applications that you want to back up or deselect any that you don't need to back up, like any of your disk games. Make sure your save data, captures, themes are all selected, and then click Next and create the backup on your USB drive. And this is just so that you don't permanently lose any of your data. You can always restore this backup in the future if you ever want to get any of your data back. So switching back over to the computer, if we plug the USB drive after making the backup, we should have this PS4 folder on the root of our USB drive. All you need to do is copy this somewhere safe on your computer, something that has enough storage space. Just copy this out somewhere safe on your computer so that you can always restore this backup in the future if you ever need to get any of this data back. So we're just going to go ahead and keep this somewhere safe on our PC. And then once we have it backed up somewhere safe, we can then remove it from the USB drive and delete that folder. Okay, so now we can actually get set up to get the jailbreak installed. So we need to download the latest version of Vue after free. which is this jailbreak. So we want to download the Vue system backup for 7-zip. We're going to go ahead and download that. We also want to go ahead and download the latest version of Gold Hen from Cyro for the PS4, our main jailbreak payload. And we also want to go ahead and download the homebrew store from pkgzone.com by going to HB Store Download for PlayStation 4. So that's what we want there. So we're going to go ahead and open up the Vue backup in 7-zip.
You need 7-zip or WinRAR to open this. I'll leave it linked in the description. And then we're just going to copy the PS4 folder out to the root of the USB drive. So copy that in there. And then we also want to open up the Gold Hen zip file here and extract the goldhen.bin file also to the root of the USB drive. We want to go to View and Show and make sure file name extensions is ticked in Windows Explorer, and then rename the file to payload.bin. So it's just called payload.bin. And that is your file name on the root of the USB drive. Do not put it inside any folders. And then last but not least, we need to copy over our homebrew store to the root of the USB drive as well. Now, of course, you can also copy over any other fake package games that you want to install on the console. So I have Minecraft here as a fake package. Fake packages, of course, are the format, the decrypted game format to get your games installed and running on a jailbroken PS4. So I'll install Minecraft and PT just as an example. So I'll go ahead and copy those over to the root of the USB drive as well. Obviously, I won't leave links to these games in the description for obvious reasons. So anyway, now that we have that copied over, we should be all good. So we can unplug that USB drive and plug it into our PS4. Okay, and on the PS4 itself, we're going to go back into our settings, back to our system settings, back over to the backup and restore section. And this time, we're going to tell it to restore the PS4. And we're going to select our View After Free backup and restore it onto the console. And then we just wait for this to complete. We'll say yes and let it do its thing. It should restore the backup pretty quickly because there's not much on here. And we'll just wait for this to reboot. And when it reboots, we should have PlayStation Vue installed. Okay, so we're back after restoring the backup. So we now have this Vue user account that we can sign into. So we sign into this account and here we go. We have the PlayStation Vue application successfully installed. View After Free. To set up this jailbreak, it does require a network connection. It does not need to be an internet connection. It just needs to be a network connection. So you could set up an old router that is not connected to the internet and just have the PS4 connected to it via Wi-Fi or via Ethernet. Or you can connect to your normal local network. So if you go onto your settings and go to the network settings, we want to set up an internet connection. Use what you normally use, Wi-Fi or LAN cable, and then select a custom setup and then select automatic. Do not specify DHCP, but you want to select a manual DNS server and then set the primary DNS to 62.210.38.117. Now, the reason for this address is it will block system updates and game updates. And that's important because we don't want the PlayStation Vue application to get updated to a higher version. It must remain on the version it's currently on. So we're going to set that DNS and then get connected up to our network. So automatic and do not use proxy. And there we go, internet settings have been updated. So once you're connected to your network, we should be good to go here. We can press options and check for updates, and it should say cannot connect to server, meaning that we have successfully blocked the game updates. Now, if you check for updates and it does actually still find the update file and tries to install it, make sure you cancel it before it installs. Sometimes there are situations where that DNS blocker can get overridden by your ISP or by your router. So if that's the case, you can set your DNS settings to 127.0.0.1 or 127.0.0.2. Try both of those, see if that blocks the updates when you check for updates. If that works, you will be able to use the PlayStation Vue jailbreak. However, it will not give you full internet access. So if you want full internet access and you're not able to block the game updates with the normal DNS server, well, another option is to just block the web address to the game update server, which is this address here in your router. If your router has a parental control filter or website blocker built in, then you can use that to block the updates. Failing that, just stay offline and use 127.0.0.1 or 2 as your DNS address to block the updates. So at this point, we should be good to go ahead and launch the PlayStation Vue application, and that should get the exploit running. We will get this service requires you to sign into PlayStation Network.
Just click OK to that message, and then it will take you into the jailbreak menu. So from here, we want to select the jailbreak option, and then you just have to wait for it to complete. If it fails or if it gets stuck, then you can just simply restart your console and try again. If it crashes the console, just restart and try again. But as you can see, this was successful. When it is successful, it only takes a few seconds to get up and running. So you can see there it's loading Gold Hen off the USB.
And then it copies the Gold Hen payload from the USB drive to the data folder on the hard drive of the console. Which means the next time you want to run the jailbreak, it will no longer require loading the payload off the USB. So you no longer need that USB drive plugged in when loading the jailbreak in future. Okay, so now that we have the jailbreak set up successfully, there's a few things we need to do first of all. So we're going to head over to our settings, make sure the USB drive is still plugged in, and then go down to Application Saved Data Management, and then go to Save Data in System Storage. Copy to USB storage device, and select the PlayStation-Vue save file, the application data, and copy it over to your USB drive. This is just so that you have a backup of that save file that you can restore if it gets reset. There is an issue where it can get reset occasionally for the PlayStation-Vue application. And then when you go to load the PlayStation-Vue application, you'll get a network connection issue popping up over and over again. So if that happens to you, you'll be able to restore the save file from the USB by just going to Save Data in USB Storage, copy to System Storage, and then copying that application data back out from your USB over to the console storage, to the system storage, and then that will restore the working save file if it gets reset. So it's important to have a backup there of the save file on the USB. So secondly, if we run the PlayStation-Vue application again, if you run into this error message that says the service requires you to sign in to PlayStation Network, obviously you can just click OK and ignore it, and it will take you into the jailbreak menu. However, if you want to get rid of that message, then you can go into the payload menu on PlayStation-Vue and run the fake sign-in payload. But make sure you only do this if you are running into this error. If this error message does not pop up about being signed into PlayStation Network, do not run this payload. But if you are getting that error message, you can run this payload. And that will basically tell the console that you are signed in. And then when you restart the console, whenever you load up the PlayStation-Vue application again, you should no longer get that message appearing. It will take you straight into the jailbreak menu. So now that we have our connection and we're all up and running, if we go into the Gold Hen menu that appears when you run Gold Hen, we have the debug settings and the package installer. And this will allow you to install all of your applications and games that we put on the USB drive. You can just hit install all and it will install all of them onto the console. So this is the equivalent of, side-loading APK files on an Android device. Except for the PS4, it's PKG files instead of APK files. But it's the same idea. We just side-loaded them using a USB drive using the package installer. And that will get everything installed there. So our Minecraft, our PT, and our Homebrew store will all be installed. So we just wait a few seconds, and there we go. It's now ready to use, and we have all of them on here. So the Homebrew store can be used to download other Homebrew applications, and then of course we've got Minecraft. So all of these are fake package games that we can run. And with the jailbreak running, it will allow us to launch those games. So that's what we've got there. So let's check out all of the golden options that you have once you have your console jailbroken. So of course we have the debug settings. You can enable the full debug menu in here if you want, but it's not really required. We've also got the cheat settings. So with the cheat settings, you can show title ID for title ID and app version. If you enable this option, it will show the game ID, the title ID, and the version that the application is running just on the home screen there, which is quite handy, but it can slow down the menu if you have a lot of applications installed, so bear that in mind. We can also update the cheat archive over the internet here by selecting the option to update the cheat archive. Once the cheats are updated, we can then enable the game patch plugin and also update the patch archive, which will allow you to apply game patches to your games, which we will go over as well. So there we go, updating the patches. Patches are now updated, and that basically gets Gold Hen fully configured. We also have the game overlay settings. So game overlay settings allows you to enable an FPS counter for your games to show your frame rates. You can also enable system information overlays to show your CPU usage, RAM usage, temperatures, and IP address. But I normally leave that off, but that's up to you of course.
And then you can also change the position of those overlays and the color, and also enable scan lines for your retro games if you wish. So that's one option there. We also have the server settings, where we can enable an FTP server, so we can remotely access the file system of the console from another device on the network. Definitely a handy thing to have enabled. And also the payload server, so we can also remotely send payloads to execute on the console as well from another device. Definitely handy. The Klog server, something that I would only recommend messing with if you are a tester or developer. And then also, we have the regular settings. Again, I would leave these as default, but you do have the date and time options. So if your clock is out of sync on the console, you can update the date and time to update the clock to the correct date and time over the internet, and also enable that every time you load the jailbreak. So every time Gold Hen is loaded, it will automatically sync the clock for you. So you have those options there. So that's your main Gold Hen settings. So just to give you guys an example of why it's a good idea to get Gold Hen fully set up and updated with the plugins enabled, is that you can do a lot of things with your games when you have Gold Hen fully configured. For instance, before we launch a game like Bloodborne here, we can press the options button and we have the ability to go to the Gold Hen patch menu. And from here, we can apply different patches to the game. For instance, skip intros to get into the game faster. We can enable the 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne, lower the resolution to 720p to hit higher frame rates. We can also disable motion blur and maybe other video effects like film grain, chromatic aberration, maybe depth of field, depending on the game. You can kind of edit all of those features. Some games also have debug or developer menus that you can enable through these patches. And now we can simply launch the game and it will apply those patches on launch. Not only that, but we enabled our FPS counter, so we should see the FPS counter pop up when we launch the game there in the bottom left-hand corner. And also we get our 4 patches applied. So that skips the intros to get into the game faster here. As you can see from the FPS counter, we are running at 60 FPS instead of the regular 30 FPS that Bloodborne normally runs on. And not only that, but if you hold down the share button on your controller, it will bring up the cheats menu. And then all of the cheats that we installed earlier with the Gold Hen menu are now available here. So we can enable the master code, we can enable infinite health, infinite stamina, one-hit kill, any cheats that you want for the game, and then you can press circle to go back into the game, and those cheats are now applied. So if I run around here, you can see I'm sprinting, but my stamina bar is not going down because we have infinite stamina enabled. As you can see, that is indeed working. So those are the abilities that you get with Gold Hen with your games that you can access. You know, you've got your overlays, you've got your patches that you can apply before you launch the game, which can fundamentally change how the game runs, and you also have the ability, of course, to enable cheats for your games as well. Now, a few other things just to mention here that are quite important. If you happen to restart the console, obviously the jailbreak is tethered, which basically means that the jailbreak is only temporary. And as soon as you restart the console, the jailbreak is no longer running. So all of the applications that we installed when we were jailbroken are still here, but they all show up with a padlock symbol. And when you try to load them, you will get a message saying it cannot use this content. So all you have to do is simply run the jailbreak again by loading the Vue after free exploit, the PlayStation Vue application. And you can see it automatically runs the jailbreak now because we set things up to auto load. So we don't have to manually select anything, it just immediately runs the jailbreak and loads it. And it's running our payload off the USB drive. But it was copied to the internal storage, so we don't need the USB drive plugged in to load Gold Hen. And now we can run our game. So just like that, we are back up and running with the exploit in just a few seconds. That's the benefit of having things set up like this. So that's the benefit of enabling the auto loader. You can get back up and running with the jailbreak very quickly. But you can also use rest mode instead of turning the console off. So if you go into the Gold Hen settings and scroll down to the settings page, you need to make sure enable rest mode support is enabled. And with that enabled, you can simply put the console into rest mode instead of turning turning the console off. And then when you recover from rest mode, the jailbreak will still be running so that you do not have to rerun the jailbreak when you reboot the console. So that is another option, but it really only takes a few seconds to get back up and running when you reload the jailbreak to be able to run your homebrew applications and installed games. So anyway, that is basically how you get set up and running with the jailbreak on 13.0 and below. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one. So hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.